What is up, everyone? Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Game Cast. I am one of your hosts, Kenny, and with me is Tess.
Hey, everybody.
And we are back. We are back, and we got some interesting topics to talk about. Before I get into some of our main topics, I wanted to talk a little bit about Candyman, the new Candyman film that released. I want to say last Friday, breaking the fourth wall. Just want to throw that out there. I went to the movies to see it, and I had really high hopes for this film, like
Hmm.
really, really high hopes. Uh, and there's it's a mixed bag for me. It's very
Oh,
mixed. Um, First, I want to say though, shout out to uh, Naya DaCosta. I believe that's how you say her last name. Um,
the
she
Costa?
is DaCosta. Is DaCosta? There you go. She is. I want to say the first black woman to be to like. So she directed the film, um, and it's number one right now, like in America, number one.
Hmm.
And I think she's the first black woman to direct a number one like film. Like it's you know
Yes.
everyone's going to see it,
Yes.
and so shout out to her,
Yeah.
and also shout out to her, and in terms of the things that she was trying to do with the film, a lot of the ideas that she was putting into the film, how she booted the franchise in a way without erasing the first film. The first
Hmm.
film, this is a direct sequel to the first film. She changed the mythos a little bit, and it actually works a lot better. There's a lot of cool things here, from the even the depiction of Candyman to how he goes about killing people. A lot of cool things.
Hmm.
At the same time, though, a lot of it doesn't work for me. And there was a really interesting article I read about that kind of broke down how we should kind of view Candyman, because there's a lot of interesting things that are happening with this film. One of the things I like about it is that it stays away from black trauma, or at the very least, it depicts it in a way that isn't triggering.
Hmm.
There'll be things that happen with the cast, and the camera is moved to the side, or it's you just kind of hear things that are happening, you don't see it. So there's a scene where, let's say, like a person's getting harassed or hurt by a police officer, but you don't see it. You see everything from the view of another character.
Hmm.
And so there's a way to speak to certain ills, societal ills, but do so in an artful way that doesn't it isn't just like like trauma porn. Like, how Hollywood is
Hmm.
big on selling our pain, right? So
Yeah.
it's the fact that they were able to do that is commendable, and they did a really good job of that. But there are things that they implement, or they bring up that just kind of fall short.
Hmm.
Some of it has to do with the way it's shot, but then some of it also has to do with the writing. I'm not going to get too deep because I know that I'm the only one that's seen it between us, and then also I don't want to spoil anything because I want people to kind of see it for themselves. But for me, there was a lot going on in this film. There's a lot of different ideas, uh, gentrification and racism, and the idea of righteous justice, and how the rage of black people can hurt black people and white people.
Hmm.
And all of that is fine. All of that is great. But the way it's implemented doesn't always work in this film. There's portions of the film where people kind of just expound on what gentrification is, for instance.
Hmm.
And it's such a dry, like, it's almost like someone sat you down and is like, this is what racism is. Like it doesn't allow the audience to kind of just know, or kind of just take their knowledge of whatever and bring it to the film. It has to sit you down and tell you about these things, and in doing so, it has some really stilted dialogue. There's some moments that are supposed to be freaky or scary that fall flat.
Hmm.
There are just some things that just don't, yeah, just don't work. And it also is confusing in terms of the view. Like, who is this for? Now, obviously, it's Candyman, so black people are going out in droves to see this film.
Yeah.
Uh, but we don't need to necessarily know what gentrification is. We don't need to necessarily know or be reminded to such a degree what these things are.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of like, tiptoeing around things. Again, I don't want to spoil stuff because it's very literal, which is also can be, Jordan Peele, he co-wrote, I guess, the screenplay, and then he also
Mhm.
produced the film, but he didn't direct. But he has a knack for being subtle. Even things that are overt, like in Get Out, they
Mhm.
work because of the subtlety of things around it.
Uh-huh.
There, at no point does someone sit you down and say this is what racism is in that film.
Mhm.
Everything is shown. There's obviously there's obvious things where like a character is speaking in such a way that they're talking about race, but they're using animals in place of humans. But you know what they mean.
Mhm.
But outside of that, it's very subtle. There's a keen eye to how these things work. And in this film, not so much. And it kind of takes away. Same thing when it comes to the horror. I love how Candyman isn't seen. They use mirrors really well in this film. He isn't
Mhm.
seen like in the other Candyman where like when he appears like everyone sees him. Like people can see him, but they have to be looking in a mirror. And because of that, it creates this eerie specter type thing.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it loses out to the original Candyman because it feels like less of a threat.
Mhm.
There are scenes that are, because they cut away from the violence, they cut away from, you know, uh, him stalking someone or, things like that. That you kind of are, you're at a distance. I guess you're not being pulled into the film, and
Oh.
so while it's cool and it's artistically well done, it isn't scary. So we take that out. We take out is being scary. We take out the fact that it's a little on the nose in terms of these things. It doesn't move in any given direction.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, there's some poignant stuff towards the end, but there's also things that are left by the wayside. There's story beats about particular characters that seem important that are just they just don't matter at the end of the film. There
Mhm.
are there's a point in the film that I really didn't like involving police officers. And
Mm.
what I'll say to that is we don't the things that happen to us are so bad in and of itself that we
Uh-huh.
don't need to embellish. There's no need.
Okay. Yeah.
It's bad
Okay.
enough. And so because of that, it feels like it kind of pulls away from what the person is trying to say with the film. It pulls away because it's like again, like we were saying before, the white gaze and whatnot, like where white people can be like, oh, I'm not that bad, or I'm not like that particular person, I'm not
Mhm.
that type of racist. Is like we don't need that. It can live on its own. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't need a whole movie about Karen to understand what Karens are. That's
Yeah.
not that doesn't do it. And then there's also this idea of like, and I don't know how well it was handled. I have to kind of watch it again. There's this
Mhm.
idea of like, you know, people invoking Candyman, and you have to say his name 5 times and all that good
Intentionally?
stuff. Yeah, intentionally, right? And
Mhm.
while I get it, and the idea that his name is going to spread, and that's what continues the curse, for good and bad. You'll find out in the film why that's good and bad. There's also this thing where like Candyman will kill anyone, and so that kind of dilutes this idea of justice, this righteousness that comes from anger. And now you could
Mhm.
kind of juxtapose that with like the riots that we might have, or just black men being angry or black people being angry, and how that can spill out and be violent, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not containable or controllable,
Mhm.
but at the same time it's done in a way that isn't that doesn't represent that to its fullest. There's a scene that betrays who they want Candyman to be towards the end of
Mhm.
the film, and
Mhm.
because of that, it's hard to accept. It's almost like Candyman is this dangerous thing that represents something. We need to comment on how that something can also affect black people negatively. So we
Mhm.
insert this scene to make sure you know that he's still not to be trifled with, and it doesn't work the way I think it should,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And again, this is all vague, but I wanted to just kind of speak about it. It is, it is. I just wanted to kind of speak about it because I wanted to talk about Candyman. I need to talk to someone, and at the same time, I don't want to ruin it. Maybe later we'll have like a spoiler cast where we can actually go into a lot of things. When after Tess sees it as well, if
I'm
she
not
cares
watching
to.
Candyman.
That's-
I'm like, well, you can spoil Candyman at any time because I'm not going to watch it.
I feel you. I'm the horror fan on the show. That is definitely me.
Yes.
But yeah, it's there's a lot. There's a lot. That being said,
Well, I'm
while
more
I
interested in how you felt going to the movies.
going to the movies. Well, I've been to the movies a couple times.
Mhm.
I want to say at least 4 or 5 times since
Uh-huh.
they opened things back up because that's
Mhm.
a favorite thing of mine.
Mhm.
And this time was good. There was a ton of black people. We were all spread out.
Mhm.
And masked up and everything. There were a few people who I will never understand, and I know we did it too when we were younger, but I don't understand the idea of bringing very young children to these films.
Yeah.
I kid you not, like 6 or 7, and I was like, why? Like, why are
Yeah,
they here?
why? Isn't this rated R?
100%. There was a lot of rated R-ness here, even with the cutting away from violence. It was very much rated R, but yeah, like I don't. So it was interesting. It was an interesting experience, and it was interesting to be around other people, other black people, to kind of see, because you could tell, even though people weren't speaking a whole lot, you could kind of tell that there was some emotional things being shown, or at least we were responding emotionally. And
Uh-huh.
that's why I'm kind of torn on the film, because while I can't say it's a good film, I can't. Like, I think good might be a strong word. I still
Mhm.
like it, which is
Yeah.
okay. We're allowed to like bad films.
Yeah.
But it's just at the same time it's disappointing because I'm like, there's so many things that I think with a slight touch here or there, or I don't know, maybe there's a director's cut similar to the Snyder cut that'll come out and it'll fix certain things. But it's just there's a huge twist that just does not sit right with me. And
Mm.
yeah, there's a lot to break down. But yeah, it was interesting. And if people want to go see it, definitely go check it out. I don't listen to me in terms of not doing it, but I want to make sure that make sure you have the right anticipation going in, that you're not like expecting like this grand thing. It might be
Mhm.
grand. Some black people have been like, this is amazing, and other black people have been like, this is terrible. I
Mhm.
am really in the middle, and I can see why both sides are saying what they're saying, because there are some really good things here. And she did a great job with her first feature film. I
Uh-huh.
believe this is her first feature film. So yeah, she did a great job. But at the same time, I think maybe there was too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen type of thing.
Mhm.
And she also makes mention. This is something that I read where people actually spoke down to her, like people who like on the set, like people spoke down to her. People treated her like less than, being that she's a black woman. There was a story she actually said where someone, what did they say? Something very disrespectful to her. Like it
Mhm.
was like a crew member while she was waiting for a Uber or something like that. They said, something to the effect of I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to say it the wrong way. But
Mhm.
when I read it, I was like, oh no, he didn't. Like I was really like, really? Like you went through this? And so it wasn't a very good experience. And that could potentially explain certain things. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So definitely go look into that. I don't want to stay on this too long, but I did want to have a segment where I could kind of talk about Candyman. Beyond that, what have you been doing this week? I know that you're still in recovery mode, so you can't
Of course.
watch as much content and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
aside from
Mm.
that,
Um, I actually caught up on some old stuff.
word.
and stuff that I didn't know existed. So I can't remember when it was, if it was earlier this year, if it was last year, when they finally put the X-Men anime up on Netflix, or
Oh,
I think
right.
it's on Netflix. Because I remember when I found it, I was like, did anybody know about this? And I was asking around. I was like, did anybody know about this? Anyway, so I took the time to watch that. I honestly want my time back. Um, I had to go on the internet and find out what people were saying about it, just because this is typically what I do. If I watch something that's horrible, I need to know that I'm not alone in thinking it's horrible. And I need to seek out my kinfolk and find out if my kinfolk are feeling, they're my kinfolk, so we're feeling the same way. But I need to know what bothered them. And I also need to find people who liked it so I can stay away from them permanently. And
Yeah.
X-Men the anime was garbage.
Really?
And it was trash. Like, if you haven't seen it, don't. Apparently, because Netflix made a deal with the anime studio to make 4 shows. So they did X-Men, which is called X-Men the anime or something like that. And then they did the Iron Man show, and then they did like 2 other ones. I can't remember what they were. But some of the reviewers were like, the X-Men one is the best. And I was like, if the X-Men one is the best, then I want nothing to do with the rest of them. I also watched Wolverine and the X-Men, the animated
And that one's
show.
old. Yeah.
It's just bad.
Oh, it's bad too?
That's bad. Like, I just find it so funny. I know we spoke about Suicide Squad last week and the week before. Like, we've been talking about Suicide Squad every chance that we've kind of gotten to just, kind of go over it, to talk about how director Gunn did so much better than director Ayer. Like,
Right.
and how one of the I guess comparisons that I just want to say is, I just don't understand how, like, my favorite of the, like, Marvel franchise, and it's my favorite because it's the one that I knew best, and
Right.
I shouldn't even say that it's the one that I knew best, but I liked it more. It was more dramatic, and it had characters that I liked. There were multiple characters. It wasn't just Spider-Man swinging around and chasing the Hobgoblin everywhere. Like, it was multiple people in their own dramatic lives, in their own love triangles, and their own, problems with whatever it was that they were dealing with, accepting who they were, helping other people. Like, I really dug X-Men, and come on, it has the best opening music of, like, any cartoon
Yeah, just
ever.
about. Yep.
And it was in stereo. Like, come on, y'all. But I just don't understand why, in my opinion, the best, or like my favorite Marvel installment, for real, just can't have good TV or good movies. Like, why is it like this? It just doesn't make it. It's so hard for me to accept and understand. I mean, they did so well with the MCU, and they had a plan, and I get it. And if Iron Man didn't work, it was never going to work. And
Right.
Iron Man worked so well, and they were able to start from there and keep moving forward. And it did well. Even they had movies that were not good. Like, Thor was a bad movie. I will die on that hill. It was a bad movie. It was stupid.
I like the
Okay.
second one much better.
Exactly. The second one was much better. And I know a lot of people didn't like the third one because they're just like, so Thor's comedy now. I didn't watch the second one. Okay. I watched the Cliff Note version because I just never got a chance to watch the second one. I really did. It just wasn't available when I wanted to see it, and I was trying to get through movies. But you know how I love Ragnarok because it's just stupid and funny. It's stupid, and I mean, sorry. First, look, what's her face is in that movie, and I'm not even Tessa Thompson. You know I love Tessa Thompson. What's her face? Kate. What's her face? Like,
Oh, yeah.
she played Hela so well. Like, I I had so much fun with that movie. That movie was fun to me. It was a lot of fun, and I know that that was their intention behind the movie. They wanted it to be fun. They wanted Hulk to go smash.
Right.
And And I think it delivered on what it was supposed to do. And
Yeah.
Loki. So, Loki got to be Loki. So, that we're going off track. But my point is that X-Men has failed every opportunity it's gotten, and it's not
Had some
it's
good
not the
films in
X-Men.
there.
Yeah, there are some good films in there, but you hear what you hear what you just said? Well,
Yeah.
there's some good ones.
Yeah.
But, like, as a whole, it's like, how do you murder one of your best franchises? You cannot go wrong. I'm gonna do my little X-Men altar prayer, and then we can move on. But like, you have the goddess of weather, okay, who is so amazing. You have Storm, who again has one of the coolest nicknames. Come on. Hey, my name's Storm. Oh, really? And your hair is white? And you're wait a minute. Are you gonna zap me with thunder? I am. Like, you have Storm, okay? And if you watch X-Men the anime, Storm is so mistreated. Like, I don't know how you have a level 5. Storm's a level 5 mutant, right? Level 5, not level 4.
I
Whatever.
believe she's Omega level. I believe
Omega
so.
level. See, you have a freaking Omega level mutant running around here. Okay. And she basically, the entire time, the entire show, I think it's 12 episodes, she does nothing. She gets injured, like the first episode or something. No, the first episode, she freezes a boat of pirates, which is the coolest thing she does the entire series. The rest of it, she gets injured one episode right in the beginning, and Cyclops' bitch ass literally says to her, Storm, don't do it. Don't use your powers. You're not recovered from the last fight. Bitch, she's stronger than you. Cyclops, you shoot a really, really, really loud and powerful solar flare from your eyes, and you do backflips. That's what you do. Your real powers is that you're a leader. You're a natural leader. Okay? That's what you're supposed to do. That you fit the mold. You're the quarterback. Okay? That he fits the mold of that. This chick can do anything. She can control molecules in the air. Do you understand that she could turn your sweat into icicles if she wanted to?
Yeah, Storm's a beast.
She's a beast. And they I don't know who I should have written this stuff down, but everyone who is responsible for the X-Men anime needs a break from working, because it was just wrong on all levels. Storm's characterization was a travesty. She apparently got hurt in the same fight that anybody else who was fighting in, like, should have gotten the same injury or whatever, and then all of a sudden she's the one who's told she can't use her powers. And then she doesn't do anything except make it snow at one point for fun to make somebody else feel better, and then uses lightning the entire time. The rest of the time she just uses lightning. And again, I can understand if she's Omega level, you can't have her winning every fight. But to just put her to the side, she's part of the team. What I don't understand is why was she even included in the show if you weren't going to allow her to be great? That's just what I didn't understand.
So now I have to watch it.
Yeah, because it's stupid. But I mean, like, again, I also am the type of person, I have really high expectations for my anime. Like, I can watch a stupid anime because I know it's stupid, but I have high expectations if it's supposed to be serious, and I have high expectations if it's X-Men. I've been disappointed by every installment of X-Men outside of X-Men the original series, the animated series, and it's still number one for me. So the point is, I watched X-Men the anime, it was garbage, and I also watched Wolverine and the X-Men. That was also stupid. They were just stupid. They were just stupid. And at the end of the day, I was like, oh yeah, these are for kids. But when we were kids and we were watching X-Men, the animation, like, it was captivating. And then I watched it again as, like, I've watched it through completely, because I remember they put it on Hulu a few years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and I've watched all the way through, and I was like, this show still hits. Like, yes, there are cartoony things that happen that don't make sense, and then there are some things that it's kind of just like, okay, this might be a kid's show. But you remember when we were kids, a lot of the things that they made for kids kind of seemed like they were for adults too.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of that. There's plenty of that.
So I when every time I see a new X-Men animated series or something, I'm sitting here like, okay, I might be 9,000 years old, but I can watch this. And I literally watch this and I'm like, yeah, this is for a 5-year-old. This is not. This has
But
no
even
real.
then, like, there's not like to say because there are some shows that are for younger audiences that aren't written necessarily because there's the idea of like you wrote something that will appeal to younger audiences, so you don't deal with a lot of like real themes for the most part.
Yeah.
Maybe outside of like sharing and stuff like that. And then
Uh-huh.
there's writing where you almost insult the audience, like you almost like
Yes.
because essentially, like you said, they were written for older kids, or they were
Mhm.
written so that parents can watch with them. So there was
Yeah.
cartoony things, but then there was themes, and how X-Men, essentially deals with race. Uh,
Racism.
it's
Yeah.
all in there, you know what I'm saying? And so they were able to make something that kind of stands the test of time. And so yeah, it's rather rough. It's rather rough. I think I kind of want to see it just to see what you're saying with the anime, but I didn't hear anything good about it, to be honest.
Oh,
When
I
you
didn't even say anything good. I mean, like if there were any good thing, there's no good things. There's honestly no good things, and because for real, it's annoying. Like again, this is the last time they animated something. This is the last time something's been animated for X-Men, or maybe I shouldn't say the last time, but this was 2011, and I think, and you had you've had decades. Okay, it looks good. It looks good. Madhouse did it.
oh,
So
nice.
it looks good, and the opening, like the opening of the show and the ending credits, oh my god, that still animation is great. It's really good. Those still pictures are very well drawn. It's exactly what you would wanna see if you wanna see a really good anime. But the story does not hit, it's annoying, it's bad, it's just it takes way too long to even get there. I'm like,
Hmm.
and then they, of course, they gotta bring Emma in, so, Storm can't wear white because Emma's there. So, because you can't have them both running around in white, you might forget who's who.
I'm mad at
Like,
that.
just saying. But no, the story, and you know what? Remember when we talked about Madhouse before, when we were saying like, with some of the animes, like you'll watch it, and then there'll be like the action's really good, right? But then, like what just when they're doing normal stuff like talking or transitioning from scene to scene, it'll be horrible.
Yeah, the
Like,
frame rate will drop like significantly.
and stuff doesn't make sense. It's just like, why is the camera on the floor when there's nothing on the like, I can understand if you're panning to the sky because you're exiting a scene or the episode is ending, but it's like, why is the camera stuck on the mirror when there's no foreshadowing, there's no Candyman showing up in the camera, like in the mirror, like none of that's happening, and I'm just like, there's all these little scenes where that happens, and I'm just like, I'm so glad that I have a vision problem right now, and I can't really pay that much attention because I'm gonna do other stuff because I don't need to watch the TV to know what's happening. It's 20 minutes of nonsense. Really, there's only 5 minutes worth of content in a 20-minute episode.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, and this, which is sad because it's not like all of their content is that way. Like
Yeah,
the stuff that they did with One Punch Man is actually decent all the way
yeah,
through. So I
yeah,
don't know if it's like, we didn't, allocate enough people to kind of make this grand or what, you know what I'm saying? Or, maybe there was some transitioning, they had to move people to other projects because they handle multiple things at a time. But yeah, there'll be times where I'm like, oh, that's not normal. That's not your
yeah,
normal quality, if you will. And
yeah,
obviously certain things will kind of dictate your quality. Like they're not gonna, Vampire Hunter D is gonna look better than freaking Beyblade. It just is. Like there's no,
Yeah,
you
there's
know what I'm
no
saying?
yeah.
There's no comparison there because one of them is for an older audience, so they want it to look better. But when you're
Yeah.
kind of like in this middle range, it's like, I mean, it'll work sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
moving on from
Mhm.
there, we also want to talk about Ed Asner, who recently passed away. For those who don't know, he is, or I'm sorry, he was an American actor and president of the Screen Actors Guild. He
Mhm.
was. I saw him when I first saw him personally in the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Uh-huh.
Um, for those of you who know, I'm like big TV head guy, so I like the Dick Van Dyke Show. Then
Mhm.
Mary Tyler Moore, who was on that show, got her own show, and then that
Mhm.
that she had a spinoff, two spinoff series from that, the Rhoda Show, which I think he was on as well,
Rhoda
and then
Show.
the Lou Grant Show, which he actually starred in. He was Lou Grant
Mhm.
on Mary Tyler Moore, and he had that show. So that's kind of where I know him from. But he was doing work, I want to say way before that,
Yeah.
1970s, I believe. Uh,
Even in the
you know,
60s.
in the 60s, yeah, he did, some Broadway stuff. But so like moving forward in time, uh, depending on how old you are, you might have seen him in
Right.
other, other places. He was in The Untouchables, in 4 episodes of The Untouchables.
Mhm.
He actually did a ton of voice work,
Yeah.
some of which I didn't know. Like he did Cosgrove for Freakazoid. I did not know that. That is freaking cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you could kind of hear his voice, like
Uh-huh.
the way he sounds. It's like, oh, I know who that person is. He was also played a character in the Boondocks.
In Boondocks, yeah.
He
Mhm.
played. It was the episode where what was the restaurant they made where
He
like
was
you
like,
would eat
yeah, the itis.
the itis episode.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
'cause he was Wonkler.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, Actually, he was in the Boondocks a couple episodes. So like he's done
Yeah.
a lot of voice work, behind the scene work. He was in Batman the animated series, Spider
Mhm.
Man. He was Hudson in Gargoyles, which I knew but didn't know. You know how like you
I mean, we were kids back then, so it doesn't matter.
right. But it's like kind of like me being a horror fan, like knowing that Johnny Depp is in Nightmare on Elm Street, but not realizing that that's Johnny Depp until I later
Yeah,
realized that that's Johnny Depp. It's kind of like
yeah,
that. But yeah, he was in he appeared in The Outer Limits, The Fugitive,
mhm,
Gunsmoke, Mission Impossible. Like he has worked all over the place,
all over the place, man.
and
He was an
w-
Up,
yeah, he was in Up. That's something you guys would know.
and
Up, the
everybody should
Pixar
know that
movie.
he was an Up, yeah.
Amazing job. Amazing job. And he's always been pretty great in his acting and voice acting and whatnot.
Yeah.
He's won uh I want to say he's one of the people that's known for his Emmy awards. Like I want to
Mm,
say he's won 6 or 7. Like he's won more than a lot of other people, like across the board. Uh for his television appearances and stuff like that. Like he's done amazing stuff. And so
yeah,
it was sad, to hear that he had passed. I'm happy that, or at the very least, I don't know what, they said it was based on natural causes. So I don't know if it
yeah,
was, you know, y- your first thought is COVID related because that's been the thing, right? And so I was kind of fearful of that. Like I was like, dang,
mhm,
not the COVID. Like,
yeah,
and not to say that his passing is better that way, but the last thing you want is someone to be, miserable and super sick, before they pass. And it's never a good thing, but it's like, if they're around family and they kind of go in their sleep, you try to think of like the most positive, I don't know, ways that someone can pass
mhm.
versus a very, horrendous experience. And so I was hoping that it wasn't COVID or he didn't, like have cancer or something like that. But they just said it was just natural causes.
Yeah,
Um,
he's 91 years old, so, I mean, which is
yeah.
young, by the way. Just letting y'all know, 91 is the new 70, so, I
So yeah,
mean,
he's also done, a little bit of activism
activism,
and
yeah.
he's you should definitely go check him out because he's been in something you've seen. Like you've heard him
Yeah.
in something you've seen. Like he's been in Captain Planet for crying out loud. Like there's something you've seen him in or heard him in, heard his voice in, and he brought something cool to the role. So it's definitely, yeah, definitely gonna be missed. And I know he
Yeah.
wasn't working. I want to say he stopped. When did he stop? Around, I want to say 2017. I think he stopped. I can't
That's
remember.
probably a good idea.
I can't
You
remember, but like that's kind of like when he was like, okay, I'm putting the mic down, kind of thing.
Yeah, let me
Um,
take a break.
take
Little break.
take a break, but prayers out to his family, and like I
Yeah.
said, we just kind of wanted to say something about it because he's big. He was big in the TV world, TV and film actually. So
And film, yeah, he's definitely a big part. If you don't know him, your parents did, so
right, like he's been in so much. He's been in so much. So um, the next thing we wanted to talk about is an interesting one. It's an interesting topic. Steam's 2 hour refund policy. Now, let me paint the scene. For the people who don't know, Steam has a policy where if you buy a game and you play it less than 2 hours and you have it less than a week, you can refund the game. They have some measures in place where, so people can't abuse the system per se. You can't buy, return, and keep doing that over and over and over and over and over. You kind of need to, be mindful about what you're purchasing. That said, you can issue a refund for a game that you've played for less than 2 hours. And unfortunately, because of that, developers who have made short games have been kind of hit with, there's a bit of a conundrum because
Mhm.
their games are shorter than 2 hours, and so people will play them, they'll enjoy them, they'll review them well, but then they'll go back and actually ask for a refund. And so recently, a a developer, uh, the developer behind Summer of '58, I believe it's a survival horror game, actually stated that they're no longer going to be making games. Amica Games said that they're going to be leaving the industry for an indefinite time uh, because there was just too many returns on their game. And so,
Yeah.
initially you hear that and you're like, "Oh, was the game bad? Was it buggy? Was it whatever?" Come to find out, it wasn't like any of those things. It wasn't poorly received. It got a very positive rating with over 280 something reviews on Steam. So it wasn't bad, and it wasn't expensive. It was like what, $6 or something like that. Like it wasn't very expensive at all, and it was meant to be a short experience. You kind of, you play it, especially streamers, right? They like to scare themselves for their audience. You buy the game, you
Mm.
play it, you scare yourself, and blah blah blah. You move on from there. But unfortunately, because so many people returned it, they they lost money. They didn't gain any money.
Mm.
And it's rough. And so I feel for them. I think that's sad and just mad disrespectful that you can enjoy something and return it like that, knowing that
Yeah.
there's no money. Because Steam, if they do make a purchase, because this is how it breaks down. If you make a purchase of a game, Steam actually gets 30% off top. You know, but then if
Yeah.
you, but that so that they're only getting a little bit of the portion anyways. But then if you refund it all, like Steam's like, well, there's nothing I can give you because nobody wants to play your game, or they keep refunding it, and they get nothing. So all that work that went into it, they get nothing.
Yeah.
I would hope that they would try to port the game to another, like maybe to a console, maybe to the Switch or to the Xbox or something like that, where things are a little bit more stringent in terms of what you can and can't refund. But that effort, porting it over, that actually takes effort. They have to convert files, and
Mhm.
I can't speak to what goes into development, but there's a lot of work
Mhm.
involved porting it over, and not even that, there's money involved because in order to get everything certified to work on consoles, a lot of times there's money involved with going through that process.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it looks grim. So I have a
Yeah.
beef with that. I have a beef with that, not just because this particular person is having a problem, is having trouble, but also because this idea that we should just be able to return whatever we want to return. That doesn't really work. There's some stores that do that. There's some
Mm-hmm.
media. There's some products that you could just return regardless. Like I think Walmart will let you return anything. I think freaking
Really? No,
Zappos.
that I need to start shopping there some more.
I mean, I've seen because what happens? They try to resell it. I've seen some, I've seen for instance, my dad, and this is a long time ago, but my dad, we bought a computer from Walmart, and this is when that was like an okay thing to do. You don't really want to buy a computer from Walmart right now, but let's say you did.
Yeah, don't do
We
it.
we bought one, and it was kind of busted and whatnot, and it didn't work. We took it back, and we got something else. Before we could actually leave the store, they were putting the one we had just returned back on the shelf. So, yeah, granted they marked the price down and all that good stuff, they were still selling something that didn't work. It's you know what I mean. And so there's some places where you can do that. I know Zappos does that with sneakers. If you buy them and you wear them and they're not too worn or too whatever, you can actually return them. You can return them. But that is a little bit different because
Yeah, it's different.
shoes, maybe you got the wrong size. Maybe they're bad for your back. You know what I'm saying? Like there's different reasons why you would kind of return that sort of thing. But when it comes to art, when it comes to film, television shows, when it comes to video games,
Mm-hmm.
just returning it because you don't like it, I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
There is no balance in terms of quality there. The deal is you pay me something, I give you something. Now, if you like what I gave you, then maybe you'll return and continue to purchase things from me. But there's no guarantee that you're gonna like it. It's subjective. And
Yeah.
because of that, there are things in place to kind of keep you that way. Like for instance, when it comes to going to the movies, if you could return every ticket that you buy, why would you ever? I would have one ticket. I mean, I wouldn't do
Yeah.
that because that sucks. But I would have, theoretically, I would have one ticket because I would just keep refunding, getting refunds, and watching everything I could. Like
Mm-hmm.
once you've watched it, once you've played it, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like you've experienced it, and that's what you're paying for. You're
Mm-hmm.
paying for, the ability to interact with this, whatever. And so, yeah, I think that's really messed up. The idea comes from initially it was in a good place. Initially it was like these are digital items that you can't return regardless. And so
Mm-hmm.
having this in place, like say like especially on PC, like say you bought something and it doesn't run on your computer's too old
Mm-hmm.
or maybe too new. If you go to Good Old Games and buy a really old game, something that used to run on DOS, it's possible that it won't run on your newer computer. So I
Right.
get those reasons to return something where you're playing it, but you're not playing it. Like you're playing and you're troubleshooting and things are not working out. So yeah, the 2 hour limit works there because you're not really
Mm-hmm.
trying to beat it. You're just trying to get it to work.
Mm-hmm.
But if we go off of just whether I like it or not, who's to say I don't like it? Because
Mm-hmm.
I could be lying. I mean, this game, has is very positive. People are saying that it's great, but they're all returning the game. You know what I'm
So
saying?
what I'm see I mean I'm less mad at the people returning it because they found a loophole to save their own money than I am with the people who created this policy for them to do it in the first place. And there's a
Mm,
reason for that because I've worked in retail for so long, but it's like people are going to do this. And I'm not saying to treat everybody, treat all your customers like they're criminals, but what made them think that this broad policy was going to work?
mm.
That's where that I mean, this is an indie developer or
Yeah, it's indie.
this is stupid. This is almost like we didn't know the we didn't know the industry very well, and so we did this really cool thing that we thought would be really great, and it backfired, and now we're bankrupt. Like, no shit. I'm sorry. Like, that's where I am because I'm sitting here like, if you, like you were saying, maybe the systems didn't work. Maybe the person's computer system doesn't work. Maybe their gaming system isn't compatible. We want to give these people a way to return the media so they can get their money back because they weren't able to play it. That's fine.
Right.
Especially if you can verify that. Because, like, for example, remember when I bought the Adobe Suite for my computer because I wanted to be able to, I actually wanted to do the editing of our podcast
Right.
on my computer, and my computer runs on Windows 7, and the
Yeah.
Adobe Suite does not work on Windows 7. So I had to contact support, tell them the whole thing. I don't even remember if I had to verify it or not. I can't remember if I did, because it happened. This was a year ago, and I have brain damage and can't remember things. So I don't even remember if I ate today. But I am pretty sure that, I had to tell them. Well, it did take a while. I think there were a few emails that went back and forth, but I had to tell them, look, I just paid all this money for the Adobe Suite. I need to get my money back because I can't use the product. I didn't use the product at all. Like, I understand this is digital, but I need my money back because I cannot use it. I cannot install this product. It took a while, but I was able to get my money back. But why would this company make some sort of return policy in which people who clearly have played the game can give it back and not verify any reason, and not make the stipulations very clear?
Right.
Like, that's literally setting yourself up for failure. And that's not fair to the developers, because it's not fair to anybody who worked on these games. And it's just stupid. It's bad business. Who told you this business model would work? These are not shoes. This is digital media.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because, and then that's where the conundrum comes in a little bit too, because gamers are, they want this sort of thing, and I'm like, well, we can't give everybody what they want. I'm sorry.
Oh,
It doesn't work that way, because we see that even though it wasn't meant to be abused in this fashion, that people will get over. Like, that's it's people in a nutshell. I mean,
yeah.
you could just look outside and you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just how people are. And so, yeah, at the very least, have some type of security thing or some type of a clause in place. I do not, because that's the thing. There's a group of people who are like, this is okay. Like, we'll just do this or whatever, and we don't really care if the indie developer doesn't make any money. Then there's people who don't like this, but they feel like it's okay to just return something you don't like, video game wise. And I'm like, this is not a rental service.
No.
You can't do that. You really can't. I think I've returned things before on Steam, but I've never done it because I didn't like a game. I have a bunch of games in my Steam library that I do not ever intend on touching because I do not like them. Whether they
Yeah.
were something I was reviewing for a website or something I purchased that I thought looked cool, but it was not cool at all, did not return it because I made that purchase. I could have read reviews, I could have watched videos, and sometimes you just make a bad purchase, But
Yeah.
because it's digital and not physical, I can't like go back and sell it. You know what I mean? I can't take
Yeah.
I have this DVD. I don't like it. Here, you want to buy it? Boom. I think that would probably be a little bit better of an option. Like, if
Yeah.
Steam doesn't allow you to refund it, allow for a trading. Like, you can trade
Yeah.
this game and get credit or something. Or trade it with another player who has a different game, and so that way you guys aren't. Steam doesn't necessarily lose money, but then the developer still keeps what they initially got from you. I'm totally down with that. But just refunding it because I just didn't like it. Who for it, fam? At any point in time, you can say you don't like your favorite game just to get the money back. Stop it.
Yeah.
This is outside of bugs, things not running properly. This just you liking it. That's a whole nother ball game. And
Right.
we see it. We see it happening. There's another game. Actually, I played. What was it? Before Your Eyes, I think it's called. I think it's called
Mm.
Before Your Eyes, and it's a very short game. I want to say you can beat it in maybe an hour, a little bit more,
Oh,
depending.
cool. Mhm.
But it's all about blinking. Essentially, you live through someone's life in moments. So like if you
Mhm.
blink, the game speeds up. It could be an hour, it could be like years. And your camera looks at you and so it could pick up your blinking. So every time you
Mhm.
blink, you move forward in time. And so you're living through this person's life, you know, these little brief moments at a time. And it's really
Mhm.
interesting, really cool game. But it's short, it's mad short. And the idea that they're not asking for a ton of money. That's also what's really, pissing me off. It's just it wasn't a ton of money. And not to say that everyone has disposable income to buy video games, but if you can buy video games, being that it's an expensive media,
Mhm.
you can. Come on, son. Like games are like $70. You can if this is like $5, $10,
Mhm.
you can not refund it. Come on.
Yeah. That's why I don't understand why the policy was even like why they were allowed this. It just doesn't make sense if it's such a small um cost. Like this shouldn't even be included in the able to return. This is one of the purchases that you just eat.
Well, see, and that's the
You
thing.
just eat it.
It was implemented wide, like because they're thinking about like if you play a game that's like 60 hours long, this huge Final Fantasy game or whatever the case may
Mhm.
be, and you return that under 2 hours, it's like okay, you do nowhere. There's no way you saw everything in this game within two
Yeah.
hours because they're so long. But they didn't think to make any type of clauses for shorter games, and that's how a lot of these companies work. It's not Facebook,
So Steam
YouTube.
made the policy, but the developers who put their games on Steam just have to go with it.
Correct. It's Steam's because Steam is the store, the online store that
Mhm.
houses these games,
Yeah.
and the developer. And granted, it's not. To be fair, it's not a lot of. There's competition, but not like Steam. Like Steam
No.
is everybody knows Steam,
Steam's
right?
huge. Everybody I have Steam on my computer. Like, I
Right. Like what I'm saying. So it's not the developer themselves didn't agree to this mess. It's a side effect of Steam, you know, enacting a policy widespread,
so
and there's no one.
this
Oh, go
is
ahead.
what bothers me because of any other retail industry, any other place, any other type of storefront that deals with something like this, the developer is supposed to still get their money. So what I'm saying, what's bothering me is that the developer is saying per the article or whatever that they have to go out of business because they didn't make any money off of this game that they put all this effort into. The problem here is that this was Steam's policy. So Steam should be biting the cost, not the developer. Steam should be eating that because that's their policy. It's like me deciding to have a store and I decide to give 20% off of all Nikes or something.
Right.
I I bought these things from at cost from wherever I bought them. Nike's not getting the 20%. They're not eating that 20%. They already got their money from me. I'm the retailer. So if Steam wants to act as a retailer, then why are they making the developers eat the cost other unless they manage to get the developer to agree to it? And the developer being an indie agreed to it because they just wanted their game out there. The
And that's the
developer
thing.
got screwed in this transaction.
Definitely screwed. And that's the thing because everything is digital. The world doesn't catch up to these things fast enough. Where
Mhm.
laws and things like that. So a lot of times it's not even a cost in that sense where Steam is necessarily paying for these games to be over here. It's more like we have the platform, submit your
Mhm.
game. You have to pay a cost because they enacted this years ago because people were
Mhm.
just uploading trash to kind of get money from
Yeah.
people. So
Yeah.
you have to pay money to get your game on Steam, and then the only way that Steam makes money from there is if your game sells. So I do understand that. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, I should say, I do agree with you though that if it's not under certain parameters, that Steam should eat the cost.
Mhm.
If people are
Totally.
returning the game because they don't like it versus the game being buggy, the game being broken, it not running on your computer,
Mhm.
those things is like on the developer. Okay, you didn't, you got to bug proof your game. That's just how it is. But
Mhm.
On the flip side, if they didn't like it, and Steam goes and looks at your reviews and they're like 99% positive, but 98% of people have returned the game, there is something wrong there. Like, you have to step in and go, all right, what can we do to fix this?
Yeah.
Or at the very least, going forward, actually enact something that will prevent this from happening. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Lower the time. Because honestly, I don't think, and this is just me, I don't think you need hours upon hours to decide whether you like a game. So if we're gonna make it like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it does not take that long. Even if a game magically changes after the first 2 hours and the
Mm-hmm.
world opens up and I was like, no, the basic bare bones of this game,
Yeah.
that's the part where you need to tell me whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
If you're
The
gonna make it like
mechanics are
that,
the same.
exactly, shorten it down then. Heck, make it under an hour.
But isn't
I'm
that
cool with
typically
that.
why there are game demos? Like,
Right. Like,
there's so many ways for this to not happen. And I mean, even this coming from me, somebody who doesn't play games as much as I, wish I did. But like, I have gotten free demos of games, through the Xbox store. I have, back in the day when we actually used to go to the store and get games, back in
right.
9,000 years ago. But remember when you used to be able to go to Montgomery Ward and J.C. Penney and the game systems were in the store
Yeah.
and you could play them in the store and stuff? Like, there was typically, you typically knew, I mean, mind you, those were bigger games, so let's not be unfair to smaller indie developers, because they weren't going to be the ones that were on the TV in the stores. You're not going to walk by GameStop and it's this little indie game that's going to be being played on the
Right.
system through the glass windows. But like, I have bought a physical game before, where I try to return it. Like, years ago, I bought SSX3 on Xbox because I had gotten my Xbox and I used to play SSX all the time on PlayStation. But now I didn't have a PlayStation. I had bought my own Xbox. The PlayStation was my brother's that I used to play, and then I played it when I was in school on my friend's Xbox. So when I bought it for myself I'm sorry, not Xbox, PlayStation. When I bought it for myself on Xbox, I didn't realize that I was going to have such a hard time playing it, because the controller is different and all
Right.
of the controls are 100% different. Like, couldn't do flying squirrel just by using the back triggers anymore. And that wasn't going to work for me. Like, this is one of my favorite games. You can't change all of the way it plays.
Right.
I didn't know the trick book at all. Like, I was pressing the what's it called button for tweaking, like B, as if it was like the square or something for tweak. Nothing was working. I was like, I hate this game. I took it back either the same day or a day later. I can't remember. And they were like, yeah, you can't give that back to us. And I'm like, and I used to always open my games, so that, like, my games and my movies, so like you couldn't tell that I'd opened them. Some person, and I never, honestly, I was never really trying to run game on anybody, but somebody taught me how to open them that way, and so I just always did it. And so I took it back, and I told them, like, I didn't lie about it. I was like, I played this game, but I cannot play it. I was like, I need to return it. I'm just going to buy it for Xbox. I'm buy it for PlayStation. And I was like, because I'm getting a PlayStation next week. And the guy was like, which I did get a PlayStation, by the way, and PS2. And the guy was like, sorry, we can't take it back. And he told me why I can. And I'm like, seriously? But this is how much I paid for it. And it's like, it's new. It really is new. And he's like, yeah, but you played it, so you can't return it. And he's like, you can sell it back to us as a used game, but we'll only give you like a couple dollars for it, or something like that. And I was like, oh, hell no. And I was so angry because I spent so much money on this game, and I
Right.
couldn't play it. And so I was so upset, because I'm like, there's got to be some way. And it wasn't brand new at the time. It was, I bought the on, how a lot of those games that they turn them into classics,
Yeah.
so it gets cheaper. So that's when I bought it. So it may have been like 20 at the time or something like that. And that's a lot of money to me back in like 2005 or 4 or wherever. So, but I couldn't get my money back because they wouldn't give it to me. So I just had to live with it. I ended up selling it a few years ago on what's it called? So what's that one of the websites you can sell
eBay.
your stuff? Yeah, like eBay or something. I got like $17 for it. Somebody really they wanted it for $17.
Nice.
I was like, okay, sure. I thought it was great, and they paid for shipping too. And I mean, hey, the game is basically brand new. It was played once. Okay. But my point is, like, I physically had a game and a real reason as to why I wanted to return it. And, they wouldn't do it. I know that they do it sometimes. Like, the person at the register has to like you in those stores. Like, I'm pretty sure under a different circumstance, it could have happened. But it just really, really gets me how they made this blanket policy and didn't take into account. I understand seems huge, but didn't take into account that they've got digital media that can be played through in under 2 hours, which would like, come on,
Yeah.
just no.
And that's the thing. It's because I get it. I get it. You in your instance with taking it to the store, it was mostly
Mhm.
because you couldn't play.
Couldn't play it.
The you know there's arguments where you could eventually learn, but them not being able to sell it at full price anymore because it's used, stuff like that. I totally understand. I used to work at
Mhm.
GameStop, and it's
Yeah.
just something we could not do. At the same time, when you compare the two, when you compare the two things, it's similar
Mhm.
because if the only thing that's different is this is digital, because
Uh-huh.
even with in your case, you actually were in a better position because you could actually resell the thing that you bought,
Right.
whereas a person who has digital can't. So
You can't.
I get why gamers are like, we should be able to just refund it, whatever, just whatever. But the problem is that you cannot. There's no balance there. At the very least, someone getting a game, a physical game, can do other things with that physical property. So a hard no works. With a digital game, a hard no is less of a sell because you can't resell it. And
I
that being
know.
said, I think that you should be given the opportunity to trade it, to be able to
I
trade it through Steam. And I know that's a big deal because Steam is, you have to
and
make
use
up
their licenses.
right, and you have to make systems and all this other stuff. Like they have to build that in. That's not something you just click a button and it
Mhm.
works, right? But at the same time, if you make this a broad thing nowadays with no type of nuance,
Mhm.
you're going to have more of these stories. You just are. You're going to have more of these stories where developers aren't able to do, or they're going to pad the experience, which I hate,
Mhm.
and make their
Mhm.
games long artificially, just so they can get over the hump, just so they
Yeah.
can make sure that you're playing at least 2 hours, so you don't try to trade it in, or not trade it in, but try to
But
sell the
return
game
it.
back.
Yeah.
You know, it's unfortunate, and that's why I'm like, that's where because people will make these comparisons with retail, having a physical versus digital. I'm like, it needs to be along the same lines. If we're going to
Uh-huh.
do a whole digital future, there are some things from retail that we need to keep. Like,
Yeah.
if I buy something, I need to own it. Don't just give me a license for a limited time. No, I need to own it fully, and I should be able to do whatever I want with the files. Outside of recreating more of it,
Right.
because that's against the law. But I should be able to sell the license
Yeah.
even. If you're gonna have me pay full price, because then what's the point? At the same time, if we're gonna do that, also make it so that people are protected when they make things, when they make these
Mhm.
digital products, this digital art for you. Make it so they're protected. Don't just
Yeah.
and to be fair, I haven't spoken with anybody over at Valve. I don't know if they're actually looking into it. I know this is something that's been on gaming sites recently, and
Uh-huh.
I'm sure the word has gotten back to them, but I don't know what they're doing to implement any type of change. I know
Right.
right now it's still the same. So, yeah,
Yeah. That's some trash.
really, really.
They really do need to do something. I mean, I know in digital media, like books and stuff, again, you were already talking about platforming, which is harder because people have different types of computers running on different systems, so that's different. But like if you have an e-reader, depending, like, of course the other person has to have the same e-reader, but like if I have a Nook, I can share a book with you that I bought. If I don't like the book, I can't return it. But which is also why a lot of ebooks are cheaper. I mean, I don't want to say they are in fact cheaper, because they're not always cheaper. Sometimes you can get printed books for cheaper than ebooks, but ebooks normally have a very similar price range.
Right.
And $9.99 and $15.99 are very common price ranges, especially the $9.99 area for ebooks. So there's a reason for that, because it's yours and you can't return it. If you didn't like the book, you can't return it. But it's also the same thing if you buy a book. If you buy a book and you read it and you didn't like the book, you can't just go back to Barnes and Noble and say, I didn't like it.
Right.
They'll be like, ma'am, you opened it. The spine is bent. The pages are bent. You put highlighter marks in here, highlighting the pages you didn't like. You dog-eared them. Like, I'm sorry, I can't give you money back, but I didn't like the book. But I can't give you your money back because you already absorbed the content. You paid for the content. You didn't pay for liking it or not. You paid for the content.
You're taking a risk.
Yeah, you're taking a risk. It's kind of like going on a roller coaster and realizing after you got off that you didn't want to do it. Ma'am, I can't put you on the roller coaster in reverse as if you're going to get your experience back. That'll just give you another bad experience, and you'll probably feel even more worse. You don't get your tickets back.
Yeah, the throw up already left your body. I can't do anything with that. I'm sorry.
Nothing. So like saying with e-reader, like if we both have a Nook and I didn't like the book, I know I can lend it to you. You can lend it to friends. One person at a time, and then they have 2 weeks to, it's kind of like you're a library.
Right.
And you have 2 weeks, and then, if they don't finish it within 2 weeks, it automatically leaves their system and it goes to yours. It just goes back to your library because you can't read it while they have it. And I do remember with Xbox that, like, if somebody else signs into your Xbox, that you can have access to their uploaded media.
Yeah, Steam's like that too. If you can share it via like a friend type thing. And so if I buy a game and you log on and we're shared like family, as long as I'm not playing it, you can play it.
Okay.
At the moment I start playing, it kicks you off.
Okay. I mean, I'm glad that at least that's there, but they clearly didn't put that they didn't take that into effect with this situation. They just made a really, really dumb mistake, and some small developers are paying the price for it, and they need to fix that ASAP, because it was that if I were the indie, I would be looking through all of my paperwork and every contract I sign, and I would be figuring out a way.
Yeah, and then it's the fact that you could do certain things like that kind of makes me feel like you could potentially trade a game. The fact that people are given licenses that are like temporary license through the e-reader and through Steam and Xbox. Like you said, like if someone logs in, if I sign in with my account on your Xbox, as long as I'm signed in over there, we can play a game. I feel like it's getting to the point where we can actually start moving this digital media around a little bit better. So I don't know. Hopefully Valve figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Because you're hurting. Indie is the indie scene is breathing life into gaming in a way that the majors aren't right now. And so you kind of gotta keep these guys in the loop. Keep them in the game.
I feel like
no
I
pun
should just
intended.
go buy the game just to help them out.
Well, I know a lot of people were trying. I don't know how effective it's been. I know there were, people were like, I'm gonna go buy it just cause. We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, this isn't the last we hear of Amica Games. Hopefully, they were able to make something new. Maybe they'll get something on console where things are a little bit more strict. I'm not sure. I will definitely, kind of keep an eye out on the studio, and if they return. But Yeah, man. Well, that is our show for tonight.
That's it.
Uh, thank you guys for hanging out with us and listening to us ramble a little bit about all the different content and themes and such that we talked about tonight.
Mhm.
If you're listening on YouTube, feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're up on all the new content. If you're listening on Amazon or Spotify, Google Podcasts, feel free to subscribe. Add us to your RSS feeds, whatever you need to do, so you're up on all the content. Actually, if you go check us out at Audio Boom, that search for the Game Cast, it has all the links there. So all the places that you might want to, not all the places, but most of the places that you might listen to a podcast, they're there. So whichever
Mhm.
one that you fancy, go ahead and click on that, and it'll shoot you on over, and you can listen to all 65 episodes. This being the 65th one. You can listen to all the episodes. I recommend the later ones because we've gotten better at this, but yeah, definitely check that out. We have some new stuff coming, a lot of content, whether it's Marvel's What If series, various films. I'm actually going to see Shang-Chi tomorrow. I'm going to see that
Cool.
tomorrow in a theater, so I will be talking about that as well.
Next
Probably
week.
next week. Probably next week. So yeah, again,
Mhm.
thank you for hanging out with us. Let us know what you want us to talk about. You can follow us on the Gamecast1 on Twitter and message us about, you know, different content. I know Netflix is throwing up so much stuff. There's so many things in my queue that I have not watched because it's just overwhelming. Like
Yeah.
I really think Netflix should sponsor us because then I would watch more. I really would. I
I
really would.
mean, I don't see why they can't or shouldn't.
Right. It just makes sense. But yeah, again, thanks for hanging out with us, and that's it for me.
Yeah, that's it. Just like Kenny said, go see Shang-Chi. It comes out tonight.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the theater, so because I don't do crowded places anymore, and I don't really leave my home unless it's to go to the doctor or the grocery store, which I'm also no longer allowed to do anymore. So, but yeah, if support, go see the movie because I think it's going to be really good. But just wear your mask, please.
Yes.
Wash your hands. Please get your vaccines because I'm sorry, man. I'm losing sympathy for y'all. Ooh. Next week we're gonna talk about how Candace Owens got owned.
Fam. You know that is a really good topic. I'm not going to speak on it right now because we're getting ready
Not
to
right
close,
now.
but there's so many things I have to say about that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anywho,
that'll happen next week. We'll talk about that because there'll be more stuff out there. But yeah, just like I tell you guys every week, just stay safe. Don't get angry and cough in somebody's face. It's not cool. If you do, don't listen to us, please. We don't want you. And
facts.
that's really it. Honestly, everyone, please take care of yourselves. Thank you to our frontline healthcare workers. We love you. You're doing the good work out there. And just remember to be kind. Hashtag be kind. Hashtag don't be a dick. And that's really it. We hope you had a good time. Hope to see you next week. Have a great weekend and a great week. Bye bye.